We've had a little time to let it marinate, the Browns' 2024 NFL schedule. There's some things that could be promising. There's certainly some things that could be a little hectic. We're going to break it all down. Your latest Locked On Browns starts now.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on the LOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, Jeff Lloyd, and I appreciate all of you who make Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. The everyday crowd just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel so you don't miss anything. Show is always available. It's always free wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Of course, terms apply. We are joined by the OBR's Pete Smith. We're going to dig a little deeper in here. Finally got the news last evening, the 2024 official Browns schedule. Anytime you can get Pete Weber involved, of course, the bowling alley theme. I think the Browns actually did a pretty good job with it overall. Certainly had a nice, fun feel to it. But you dig deeper in, and look, you knew the games. The question was how the opponents were going to be stacked up. And for those who we know who you're playing. No, a big thing is how these games get stacked up. Very ironic and just very weird. The Browns' first, 6 games for the NFC East is right out the door, done and over with. Then, the AFC West games are kind of sprinkled here within, first 3 games within the division are at home. The last 3 games within the division are on the road. But Pete, as far as, definitely think like the beginning, maybe first 6 weeks, there's some things that are going to help the Browns there, because you do think Nick Chubb's going to come back eventually, but you do have one other significant player on this offense who will be back a lot sooner than Nick Chubb, but is also coming off a season-ending injury of his own.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I don't, everybody talks about how the whole season is about Deshaun Watson. So if you look at it through that, that's how I look at the schedule. How does this affect Deshaun Watson? And to me, I think it sort of lays out reasonably well for him. Dallas could be tough. Dallas has those pass rushers. Dallas has a talented defense, even though they lose a very talented defensive coordinator in Dan Quinn.
And took some role players with him.
Yeah, yes, he did. But if you can get that win at home, where the Browns have been great, the defense has been great, you can roll into Jacksonville, and you may, that'll be again another tough game, but that has the opportunity to get this team on a roll. You have to take advantage of the fact that you get the Daniel Jones-led New York Giants.
New York Canadians.
24 Stanley Cups in those sweaters, baby. How can that be wrong? Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew leading that Raiders team, which looks to me very incomplete. That, again, the defensive line will be tough first couple weeks. And then Commanders, who you're likely playing against the rookie quarterback. But again, here's Dan Quinn. I worry a little bit about that defense.
But again, Washington might be a team you'd rather play week 4, week 5 than play 12, 13, 4, of course.
I agree with you. But so for one, on the one hand, the Dallas game, for all the stuff we talked about, the defense coming out of last year, Dallas is the test. Dallas is a very good test for all the things that the Browns ran into last year. Jim Schwartz heading into year 2. A lot of continuity and some fun extra pieces. Mike Hall, certainly part of that. Just Jordan Hicks, who I think is an upgrade at linebacker. They should be better, even though it may not necessarily be reflected in the rankings this year because they're playing a much more difficult group of quarterbacks. Now, having said that, there are almost all of them are at home, which works out. But you're going to get that first taste of what did we learn? How did we adapt when you faced Dallas in that game with Dak Prescott? And the weapons they have on that team are problematic. But that first 6 games, you need Deshaun to, if he doesn't have to be great, but he has to be effective. He can't be a net negative, because once you get to week 7, it's go time. That's where everything starts. So in as much as because we came into this knowing that the Browns, at least based on last year, and obviously every year it changes, that they were going to have a difficult schedule. But the way it lays out, it's not easy, but like if you were going to try to look at this as, yeah, you got a couple difficult early tests with Dallas and maybe Jacksonville, but then you get a chance to sort of ramp up a little bit, gain some momentum before you really need it. I think in some ways you'd sort of take that.
And the thing, though, is, look, there is no batting practice this year with the schedule. Look, you're just a better team. You have no, like, the draw of the NFC East, that has nothing to do with how you did last year, of course. The draw of the AFC West, that has nothing to do with how you did last year. Basically, it's just blind luck on how it works. And obviously, it's rotating because, you're going to rotate over a 3-year period with the AFC. You're going to rotate with over a 4-year period with the NFC. So the fact that the Browns swept the NFC East in 2020 has nothing to do with this season. One thing I do think with Dallas is, look, I mean, you went down there the last time you played them and you did win down there. I think you would rather have Dallas in Cleveland on grass than down there, obviously, on the surface. I don't know what the Cowboys' game plan is as far as running the football this season.
Zeke, let's go. What do you know? What else do you need?
Yeah, they thought he was too slow 2 years ago, so they decided to bring him back, and all of a sudden maybe that's going to work out for them. Let Tony Pollard basically walk out the door to Tennessee without basically even trying to get into any type of bidding war with them. The Giants, they're just not going to be a very good football team. I mean, if it's Daniel Jones, I mean, good luck with that, but I think we've all seen enough. Like I said, Washington, I think this is a team you would rather see, earlier than later. Vegas, look, I mean, again, it's, you want to do the Gardner Minshew thing again. The Browns did it last year on the road. I'm not too concerned about that. And the Eagles, look, I think the Eagles season last year was definitely more of a bump in the road. I don't think this team is even close to going away from being, the competitor that they were. I do think they had to get through some things. Obviously, the team got a little bit older, had to move on for some players. Certainly, Fletcher Cox and Kelsey, they're tough losses, but having players there like that who, are holding a good amount of salary certainly, makes it difficult for you to start to transition to the next phase in some positions. They're probably much faster at the edge rusher position, as they're probably going to get Nolan Smith. They're probably a little bit more involved, and certainly brought in, Huff over from the New York Jets. But even still a little leaner, obviously. One of my favorite matchups, of course, I think from the entire first beginning part of this schedule is going to be the Dallas Cowboys first round pick making his NFL debut, going from right tackle to left tackle, and draws the reigning NFL Defensive Player of the Year in Myles Garrett. Hey, look, if you're not ready to go week 1 in your NFL career, kid, that might be a good time to get a little stomach virus, stomach bug, something of that nature. But we're going to roll on, and we're going to get to a little bit of the meat and potatoes where the Browns have that 3-game stretch, 7, 8, 9, then 10 game at home. Then week 10, the bye week, placed so perfectly this year. 9 games, bye week, 8 games to close it out. Your latest Locked On Browns rolls on. Don't anybody go anywhere. It's winner take all time in the NBA and the NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Your latest Locked On Browns rolls on. Your host, Jeff Lloyd, and I appreciate all of you who make Locked On Browns your first listen every day. The everyday crowd, step in, join, subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Don't miss on any of the action. And, of course, the show is always available, always free, wherever you get your podcasts. Now, you begin conference play week 7, October 20th, at home, 1 o'clock. Cincinnati Bengals obviously come to town. You're home, going to run it back right next week after October 27th with the Baltimore Ravens. Then the following Sunday after that, coming to town will be the Jim Harbaugh-led Los Angeles Chargers. And those of you in the comments, I did see them. I never have gotten that without a hat on and the hair done. I look like Jim Harbaugh in my life, so that was certainly a first. But that's a pretty big stretch there, Pete, because if there are any hiccups in the first 1 through 6, you can try to correct that there. But, if you can find a way and you have those 2 at home and to aid you, you really, really want to do well in these first 3 division games, because that second 3 all on the road.
I hate that Chargers game because I think coming off that Eagles game on the road, and you've got two potentially emotion-filled games against the division.
And the Chargers are going to come in and play physical. That's what they're going to want to do.
And that's why I hate that game, because if you have that stretch of Eagles on the road and two potentially emotionally draining physical games against AFC North opponents, then you may get a little bit tempted to sort of look at that bye week and go, oh man, thank God, here comes a break. And then I'm not buying into this notion that Jim Harbaugh is suddenly going to make the Chargers into a Super Bowl contender, because Patrick Mahomes has not died. But if he just does what he's always done and gets a team to play physical, that to me is the definition of a trap game. You don't want to get in a slugfest with that type of team, especially when you're sort of the end of this this stretch where you're trying to go into your bye. So like that to me is when I'm a little bit worried about, just from that standpoint. If they're hitting you for 4 quarters and you get into sort of an ugly fight, a fist fight, you don't want to come out with an ugly L against a team you might be better than, and they still have Justin Herbert, who's a great quarterback. So that game's tricky. But like, you get all your division games at home before you get all your division games on the road. I think in addition to the fact that you've got the first 6 games you've already talked about, I think, again, this is an opportunity to sort of get on a roll, because look, the Browns went 3-3 in the division last year, which means they went 8-3 outside of it. I would love the Browns to go 8-3 outside of the division again this year. I just think that's going to be way more difficult. So you need to potentially win more within your division to keep pace. And if you can take care of those games, if you can take care of those at home, once you get, the road's going to be difficult enough, but like looking at the end of the schedule for the Browns, the Steelers, the Ravens, all of them have awful, awful stretches for the last part of the season. So at that point, it's really a battle of attrition. It's how healthy are we? Have we been able to gain momentum? All those things. And, when is Nick Chubb going to be back? And what does that look like? Are the Browns adding Nick Chubb to a well-oiled machine where the Browns are playing well on offense, their defense is cooking, and you bring back Nick Chubb and everybody else is sitting there going, uh-oh, they've got Nick Chubb back on top of everything else that's going well? Or is Nick Chubb coming back and they're going, no, Nick Chubb, we desperately need you to carry this team? Because that is the nightmare scenario. You cannot ask him to carry this team coming off that injury. You don't know what he's going to be. They have to be good enough without him. He's got to be a bonus to your team, something that makes you better. He can't be something that makes you, relevant. And that's the delicate line they've got to sort of cross. But like that, again, it just continues to put pressure on the Browns to get good fast, take care of business early, and try to establish dominance in those divisional games in the middle of the year, so they don't get to that last month and are chasing football games. That you do not want to be in a scenario where you are looking at that from the Steelers game to the Chiefs to the Bengals to the Dolphins, finishing with the Ravens going, we have to make up 3 games here, or we have to make up 2 games here. You just can't count on that. And maybe one of those teams completely falls apart and it turns into the Jets of last year, where going into the season, we're sitting there going, ooh, that Jets game might decide a playoff spot, which it did for the Browns. But you can't count on that, and you don't want to be going in there going, we got to claw our way back, because I think if a team, which routinely has been the Bengals, is trying to dig themselves out of a hole late, it's just not going to happen.
No, and I think you're perfectly well said with the way you're talking about this with Nick Chubb, because the way you want to view this with Nick Chubb is, like you made yourself a beautiful ice cream sundae and you still have like some ice cream left and a lot of toppings. Nick Chubb should be like the extra scoop, I need another scoop of ice cream, and look, if it's to the point where you're bringing him back and he's trying to work his way through it and everybody in the building knows you're trying to have Nick Chubb carry you, well, guess what? We've seen games where teams just absolutely keyed on Nick Chubb, and Nick Chubb had to give the most heroic effort in the world to give you the most beautiful either negative 1 yard run or 0 yard run. And you certainly don't want to get in that position. But that being said, is week 10 bye week maybe, going to New Orleans? That's probably the realistic timetable, you think, Pete?
Hard to say. Like, that's one of the things where you know, we don't have enough information to really judge this. And you sit there and go, you know, maybe they want to get him. Obviously, all this depends on when he's truly going to be ready. But is there a part of you that goes, hey, you know, the bye week's a great time? Or is even the Chargers game where you get a little, you know, you get him a
little taste. Yep.
And then you sort of can use that bye week to get him healthier and then feel good. Or, you know, I mean, perfect world, you don't need him until those last 5 or 6 games. So it's just so hard to get. But putting that bye week 10, certainly just screams conversation around when Nick Chubb is going to return. Because unlike last year where the Browns had that week 5 bye week, enjoy that one, Detroit Lions.
Yeah, choke on it.
You just look at it and go, man, that's a nice natural break point if it is truly a situation where the Browns are going to need him for half a year, both in terms of difficulty in the schedule and just the way the time works out. I mean, as I've said all along, I want to be super conservative with Chubb. I want to get 100% of whatever he can bring to the table. I don't want to see him 70% or 80% of what might not be the real thing. And then, because the immediate reaction will be everybody's disappointed in him.
Of course,
he's pissed, obviously, because he's not what he was. I want the Browns to be good enough that they don't need him, and I want Nick Chubb to be put in a position where he's successful, so they can be the story everybody wants him to be, because he deserves it. So it's a conversation we can't escape. Week 10 just looks like the sweet spot for that, but we won't know until, you know, we get more information on him. Obviously, you're seeing, you know, Zapruder film of him doing sprints and stuff, and people overanalyzing. It's just impossible to know at this point. I mean, we're talking about this in May. I don't remember where on the schedule, if it's in November with the bye week, but that's potentially 5 to 6 months away.
Bye week would be November 10th. And I do think I kind of like actually you floating the theory of, if it was feasible, you would bring him hopefully maybe, you know,
second Steelers game would be sweet.
Yes, but or week 9 though, the Charger game. Say, hey, you look, Nick, I'm going to let you. We're good. Everybody's signed off, but Nick, you're not getting more than 8 touches.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah.
We're going to see where you at. We're going to be on ice next week, and then we'll talk about New Orleans the rest of the seasons after that. Certainly makes a ton of sense. But again, it's premature talk. But look, if you were one of these people that think Nick Chubb is going to be a guy who's going to be suiting up for the Cleveland Browns week 1 against the Dallas Cowboys, you've got to stop with that. Look, even Odell a few seasons ago, they still held him out a couple of weeks. And that was just the ACL. They will play it cautious, and they're certainly going to play it even more cautious with Nick Chubb than they did then with Odell Beckham Jr. We're going to get to that last slate, and there is a lot of teams who were in the playoffs last year. So, I mean, look, the playoffs are going to start early for the Cleveland Browns. We'll see how they manipulate it. Your latest Lockdown Browns continues. Look, have you ever gotten into a bad ticket buying experience? My wife, my girls, all spring, all summer, we have a lot of outside venues by us. They love to go see their live music. But the problem is you got to know who you're dealing with, because you can get pictures of seats that aren't actually your seats. You can go ahead and get ready to purchase, and then all of a sudden these extra fees show up. Look, you got to know what you're doing, and you got to know who you are dealing with. That's why we love GameTime. They have killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. GameTime takes the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets. Look, NFL schedule just dropped. Do you want to go see your Browns at home? You got family in Florida. You want to go to Vegas for the first time in your life. You can use GameTime while you plan your trip to make sure that part of your trip includes seeing your Cleveland Browns. The app features so many great things. You have view from your seat in the picture, so you know what you are getting. The tickets on GameTime will actually get less the closer to kickoff, because they don't want to eat the tickets. They have the lowest price guarantee. They have event cancellation protection. Heck, they even have job loss protection. So you take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. You download the GameTime app, you create an account, and use the code LOCKDOWNNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the GameTime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Closing out your latest Locked On Browns, the OBR's Pete Smith is here, digging deeper into the 2024 schedule. And, look, it's exciting at first, and you know what the games are, but you start to see the way they're lined up, what gets difficult, what maybe looks easy. And look, it is a lot different schedule than last year. The Browns, yes, are a lot better football team. You draw a division like the NFC East. You draw the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC West. But Pete, you go from here. You go 12, playoff team last year. Week 13, Denver Broncos, a team that you lost to last year. Week 14, again, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Week 15, the Super Bowl champion Chiefs. Week 16, the Bengals. If it's Joe Burrow, they are just as good a football team as many of the other teams, not named the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC. Week 17, I got to be honest, if I'm getting the Miami Dolphins in Cleveland, I certainly want it in late December than I do at any other time. And then, who even knows? Who even knows how 18 works? Does one team get to sit or both team in it? But week 18, a trip to Baltimore, one of the biggest games of last season that turned out extremely well for the Cleveland Browns. But week 18, the 2024 regular season will close in Baltimore. Pete, but it's going to start early. Like, these games are going to be pretty serious. And like you just said before, you can't get into the stretch saying, all right, well, as long as we go 6-0 here, we'll be good.
Yeah, I just don't think it's realistic. Like I think the Saints game off the bye is the most winnable game post bye. Rest, refreshed, all that stuff. Even though the Superdome is not an easy place to play, but then you have to turn around and 4 days later you're playing the Steelers the first time, and then the mini bye is great. You go to Monday night against the Broncos. The Browns do not travel well to Denver. It's just always more difficult than it seems like it should be.
Where's Baker and Antonio Callaway when you need them?
Yeah, I mean, whatever running back that the Browns lost to Jacksonville, who had 100 and something yards, just churning his legs endlessly. But yeah, like the Broncos have just been a thorn in their side for reasons that don't always make sense. But like the elevation,
Dearness Johnson,
that's him, the fisherman. He, it just historically has not been a good place for them. And then you have to come back, short week, back to the Steelers for that rematch. How much does that change? Or, who's going to be the better team and able to adjust? And then it's hosting the Chiefs, at the Bengals, hosting the Dolphins, and at the Ravens. And I'm sort of iffy on the whole Dolphins thing because on the one hand, I would say, yeah, it makes all the sense in the world. You want to get them late. If it's a particularly difficult winter, maybe that helps you. But I also look at it as, when does Bradley Chubb come back? Is Jalen Phillips coming back? Because is that are the Browns going to be sort of right in the time when those guys are going to be getting back on the field? It's tough with the Achilles with Phillips, so with him, I don't know.
So even if he's out there, it's working out the kinks. It's not back 25 is back.
It's just one more thing to sort of consider. So I don't know the answer to that, but it's after that game in the Superdome, it is all outdoor games and all weather cities. So, we'll see if the Browns can deal with it. If we get the, sort of outdoor old school December football that everybody claims they love, if that works out for them, great. But yeah, they need to, you look at that stretch and you want to be in a position where you can either split it or even potentially go a game 500. But here's the bottom line. If all those teams are what they're advertised as, and the Browns can get through it and look good, they will have proven their mettle as a team that's ready to compete, because these are all potential playoff teams. These are division games are always tough anyway, but you are talking about the back-to-back Super Bowl champs. You are talking about one of the most explosive offenses in the league who have a pretty good defense. You're talking about a team that was in the AFC Championship last year. If you can do well against those teams, you're going to be ready for the postseason. Now, you may sort of be a little bit gassed by the time you get there. Certainly be helpful if they had the 1 seed and could get a little break. But if that's the group you're beating at, it's not like last year where you got the compromised Jets who seemed to be quit halfway through that game. They quit halfway through the first quarter. They've got, these are real teams. Like, if you can beat the Chiefs in that scenario, we talk, the Browns, to a man, the Browns talk about the Ravens win as being a pivotal moment for them, being a major turning point. It was a big game, obviously, for Deshaun Watson and everything else, also the injury. But like David Njoku, I know everybody tracks like his yardage with Joe Flacco, and it's really good. That's the game where he sort of took over and he just physically dominated. And there are a lot of guys on that defense who are like, this is when we knew we were a good football team. You're going to get a lot of those moments down the stretch to be able to say, no, we are a very good football team. If you can hang and you can prove it against those teams, you're going to be ready for the postseason. And at that point, and this is when Deshaun Watson needs to be franchise quarterback Deshaun Watson, starting that week 12, 13 area. Yep. The Browns are going to look the part of a contender and potentially be a real threat to do some damage in the postseason.
And come Sunday, December 19th, yes, you're playing at home against the Kansas City Chiefs, but, could be a certain celebrity who apparently plenty of the Kansas City sites have already noted she will not be performing an Eras Tour show anytime around that date. So which becomes the, I don't want to disrespect it because it's somebody's relationship, but you saw the way it affected games last year. So it could be a lot of, can we please see the Cleveland Browns players and not focus on the starlet in the private box at Cleveland Browns Stadium.
I happen to know a few people who will be like outside pounding on the box if she's there.
Just say Abby Mueller and Bray Pete. Just say their names.
I'm just saying. I know somebody who might rhyme with Bree, who would be out there maybe more interested in what's going on in that box than the game.
Hey, hubby Jeff, I hope you got the kids. Bree's gonna be a little busy. She got something else she might want to attend to.
And she won't be the only one. Her daughter will be there with her.
Actually, yeah, you just have to worry about the son and the little one, so he'll be all right. But look, I appreciate Pete for his time. Obviously, we always have great conversations. Look, this is for me. This is it. Like, we have off season, we have the draft, but this is it. Now it's all official. We know what it is. It's all laid out. Now we can get really into the fun of it. Look, we're not going to admit summer. We're all going to hopefully, if we can finally get the weather to cooperate, we're going to enjoy our late spring, our summer, but we're going to talk some ball. And before you know it, we'll be kicking off early kickoff this year. First game, September 8th. We're going to get to it all. So make sure you're checking Pete Smith out. Of course, everything over at the OBR. Make sure you're following @_Pete Smith _ appreciate his time. I'm your host, Jeff Lloyd. Appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every day. The everyday crowd. Again, you're a bunch of filthy animals, but you're my filthy animals. Join the filthy animals. Subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. And of course, the show is always available, always free, wherever you get your podcast. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on ELOB. Let's go, Browns.